welcome back to Lisa at the Edge and to a brand new episode in my Women in Tech series. Today I am joined by another one of my Dell colleagues, Aimie Coole. So let's bring her to the stage and meet Aimie.
Hi Lisa.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm really good. How are you?
Hello, good. Just a bit of background, me and Aimie had some technical issues, but we've done the good old turn it off and turn it on again. And we're hoping for the best. So I am very excited to get into another one of these episodes and find out all about your journey into tech, your career so far, and sharing your wisdom with our audience. But before we do that, do you want to give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. My name's Aimie Coole and I work within the EMEA Technology Office at Dell Technologies. So the Technology Office is built up of specialty engineers, which we will call SMEs. And my focus area is data protection and cyber resiliency. So day to day, I support accounts across EMEA with any opportunities. I bring awareness to customers around their cyber resiliency plans and their strategy within the organisation. I also represent Dell at many events, presenting, and I am involved in a lot of our EBCs within the Exec Briefing Centre at Dell Technologies.
Amazing. So I can't wait to hear more about that. And, we'll ask the questions I always like to ask, like, why do you love your job and why do you love tech? But before we get into that, we'll start where I always like to start, right? Which is finding out about how you got to where you are today. But going a lot of, I like to go further back than anybody else. I like to ask the question of, when you were a kid, right, is tech where you wanted to be, or were you interested in other things? Because I often find out that people have got some really cool backstories. And I know that you yourself, when we kind of were preparing for this, you shared that, you kind of wanted to be something different every month. And that was a kind of a running joke with your dad. And that also, when you were younger, you had a big passion for, art and design and that kind of thing. So talk to me a little bit about those early days and kind of what you thought you wanted to be when you were just a little girl.
Going back to when I was younger, I wanted to be like something different every week. Honestly, I've always been very, very ambitious. And one week it was a teacher, and then it would be like an astronaut, an architect. I guess when engineering came in to the picture, which I wouldn't have known this back then, but now when I look back, when I was 10, at Christmas time you write a list to Santa, and we were always allowed to have one big present on our list to Father Christmas. And my request when I was 10 was to have a Dremel, a drill. My mum, at the time, my mum was like, we can't get her a Dremel. Don't you want something like a doll's house or a nice pink bicycle? I was like, no, I want a Dremel. My dad was like, well, if that's what she wants, get it for her. I don't mind because I'll use it anyway. So I've always been very hands-on, if you like. And I think a lot of that probably came from my childhood, the way that I was brought up on a farm. My dad always had us out working on different things, exploring. Farmers are a trade of everything in one. So they'll be fixing electricals, they'll be fixing mechanics, building things from scratch. So we were brought up around that environment. But I guess then I went into school and I started to think about teaching. I love sharing skills with other people, and then just enjoy looking after people really and being in front of people. When I went into college, I studied art, so I studied fine art, And I was always interested around architecture. So I sort of wanted to go down the path of either an architect or an interior designer, because I have a massive creative side to me as well. And I probably don't show that as much now because of the industry that I'm in, but that's just naturally within me, the creative side. I had a good think about it, and I was thinking long term, like what's going to be the best career option for me. And I decided to not go to university in the end. I stayed at the college within the island. So I live on the Isle of Man. Not many people know. I was born here. And I went into an apprenticeship with the local government scheme. So they were running at the time an apprenticeship scheme where they wanted 2 engineers every year to come on board, and they would train you, they would put you through all of your certification up at the college, and then you'd also get the physical side of it as well. So you get that hands-on experience with an organisation on the island. So I decided to put an application in for the first female engineer at the time to do the computer engineering apprenticeship with the government, and that's where it all started. Yeah, no, I've never looked back since. So the answer to your question is, tech was never a thought to me, you know, in my childhood years and growing up, and even to that point, you know, when I was doing my A levels and in high school. And then this opportunity came up, and I thought that would be an amazing opportunity, actually, because, you know, I'm still going to get paid. I'd always worked, like my young adulthood, always worked and always was used to being independent and having my own money. And that meant that I could still train, I could still get certified, and I could still earn a little bit of money as well. So it was the perfect program for me at the time.
Yeah, I think apprenticeships are really cool, and I think something that really does need a bit more focus. I think for someone like you, if you were, you know, you're so driven, you're so, you know, brought up on the farm in a family of problem solvers, you know, used to working from a young age, got that drive. If you'd gone into uni, I'm positive that even if you had gone into uni, you know, you'd be like working and you'd be doing X, Y, and Z on the side. But I think that the apprenticeship is really that blend of like the best of both worlds. Like you say, you get your independence, right? You get to start earning money, and I think that's important as well. From it's kind of a life lesson that maybe some people don't like, get as early on as like we should. So yeah, it sounds like that was the best of both worlds for you. And what I find so interesting about this part of the story is that you were literally the first female engineer on that program, right?
Yes.
And so I imagine that was an experience, right? So talk to us a little bit about those early years of that apprentice and being like the only female engineer, and kind of some of the experiences that you had there and how you kind of overcome them, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, there was tough times, particularly earlier on, and when I first started. I think when I used to walk into some of the offices, they'd have to double look because it was a female. I got questioned quite a lot to begin with, so it was challenging. I guess that's built the character that I am today. It's made me resilient. It's made me strong. I'd say it probably made me want to prove myself over and over again. And that's maybe why I'm such a hard worker.
Yeah.
And I still have those tendencies to do that today, to still prove myself.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes I still do see it when I go into different parts of the world. Now I cover EMEA.
Yeah.
And then it exposed me to all these different cultures that maybe aren't up to, you know, other regions within the world. And I still do get the odd look as if to say like, oh, a female. But earlier on, I'll give an example. There was one customer, and I turned up at the time. It was to fix a tape library. So
Okay.
you can imagine, yeah, that was like 20 years ago. Because I started out as a hardware engineer, where there's not many of them left now because the
Yep.
industry has changed so much. And I
Yep.
turned up to fix this tape library, and the manager turned around and said, "Oh, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Where are the males? Where are the men engineers?" And they rang up the company I worked for at the time, and they said, "No, like you need to send some male engineers to do this."
Mm-hmm.
So I was really like upset about that,
Yeah.
and it took me back. So then I thought, no, keep doing what you're doing, keep working hard. And probably about a year in to the job, um, I had to go down there to the same company, and I was dreading it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I went in to fix this issue that had been ongoing. And anyway, he let me in, he let me fix it, and he thought, oh, okay, I just did an all right job there. And then a year later, he would actually start to call and raise a ticket, and he'd ask for the female engineer. And I was at this company for 11 years. And I remember when I left, I had such a great relationship with him.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were just so sad that like Aimie was leaving. So it just
Yeah.
goes to show that, yeah, I have the struggles, but it made me work
Yeah.
hard, it made me strong, it made me
Yeah.
learn to build relationships as well.
Yeah. Very true.
Yeah, and just believe in yourself, really. I think, like I said, like I still do get the odd look, if you like, when I go into certain sessions
Yeah.
around EMEA now. But
Yeah.
I think the world has changed so much that women have got like fantastic opportunities within the tech industry now. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not just technical roles, you can go into all different types of roles within the industry. You don't have to be
Yeah.
a hardware engineer. But yeah,
Yeah.
there was challenges to begin with. And I think that built the person that I am today.
Yeah, and I think that's such an interesting story, right? Because that, at that time, those biases were there and they were quite open, right? But it just goes to show that like biases are there and exist. Whether I feel like now they're still there, but we're either not as aware of them or they're just not as open. But yeah, if you give people a chance, if someone comes in and they don't look like who you expect or, whatever, give them a chance, be open, hear what people have to say, like hear if just give people that time to demonstrate whether they can do what you're asking of them. And so yeah, I think that's such an interesting story. I think you're right. I think times are different now. What I will say is that there is still not, in terms of even if we look across our org, etc., there is still very few women, especially in pre-sales. And that's kind of part of why I wanted to do this series as well, because I can see more and more new when the new pre-sales people coming in to Dell through like our various schemes, and we've got a lot more women coming through it, and I really want them to stick around, right? I want them
Yeah,
to
yeah.
hang around. I think that it is such a cool place to be. There's so much opportunities, and I think that yeah, so I feel like doing podcasts like this, I just want to raise the visibility, right? That there are
Mm-hmm.
women out here like me, like you. We're all very different in various ways, but also very similar. And so if people can kind of look around them and have someone that they relate to who is
Mm-hmm.
perhaps doing the role, then it might encourage them to kind of stay in the industry. So that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast and just share stories like this, because I think it's important to hear those different perspectives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And there was times like I've been in the industry for just over 20 years. A lot of people always say you don't look old enough
no,
to be in the industry for that long, but I didn't go to uni. Like I went straight into this apprenticeship, which meant that I went in at 18
yep,
into the industry and worked myself up from there. And don't get me wrong, there was times where I thought, can I do this? Earlier on, and I thought maybe I should just go into fitness, maybe I should go into like
yep,
beauty therapy and things
yep,
that I did also enjoy.
yep,
But I thought no, and I was determined to stick at it and prove myself. And there was a time 10 years in when I ended a relationship, and I started thinking, well, maybe I need to start looking at something different, a new chapter in my life. And
Yeah.
I got asked to manage a fitness centre that was getting built in the Isle of Man. And I did consider leaving the industry to go and do that, because fitness is a massive passion of mine. And then I remember sitting down with a really, really good friend of mine and discussing it. And she was like, keep it as a hobby, keep it as a passion and a hobby. And she said, you are in the right industry, you're good at your job. She's like, put all your energy into tech. And I thought,
Yeah.
you know what, she's right. And I thought, if I'm going to put having a family on hold,
Yeah.
no, I'm not going to get married or have kids, then I'm going to put everything into my career. And that's what I did. I just went tunnel vision. I focused. I worked really hard to get to where I am today.
Yeah. So it's so funny. I'm kind of similar. Like, I'm very much known in my friend group as like the career one, right?
Yeah.
And like that has been great, right? It's definitely been great. Like, I have no regrets whatsoever. But I have, in the last few years, I started to think like, hey, I need a life outside work. I need some hobbies. And so I've been I've been very much trying to focus on bringing that back. Have you kept up with like fitness? Have you kept up with any of your creative hobbies outside of work? Like, have you managed to do that, and has that helped?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important that you do make time for yourself, because
Yeah.
we can talk about working very hard and being ambitious and being driven to get where we want to be.
Yeah.
But also, you have to think about number one, and you don't want to burn out. Like, I had a recent period where I was so busy with travel, and it's my own fault for taking too much on. And
Yeah.
I scared myself a little bit, because I was exhausted.
Yeah.
So it's just a reminder to work. What's the saying is, work to live, don't live to
Live
work.
to work. Yeah. That's
And
yeah.
make sure that you do have your own hobbies, downtime. I do quite a lot of yoga,
Yeah.
meditation. I find that helps. I love anything that's active, whether it's, I live on an island, so I can just go paddleboarding, kayaking, hiking.
Yeah.
Also love the gym. It's a big social thing for me as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really, really important for your own mindset, your mental health, to have your own activities outside of work,
Yeah.
and just have that downtime, really, and
Yeah.
not to burn yourself out.
I first of all, you've made me want to move to the Isle of Man. Like, every time I hear you speak about life there, I'm like, island life is for me. I mean, I know, yeah, but secondly, do you know, as you were talking there, I was thinking to myself, I was kind of thinking back over because I've now been in the industry, it's like just over 10 years. We could potentially add on some other years, working for some different companies that were tech related. But I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, there was a time I was really into the gym, right? I, was really into the gym, competed in a bodybuilding competition and everything. So I kind of was thinking to myself, wait a minute, when did I? And you know what? It was after that, and it was during lockdown. So I've always thrown myself into work, but I think up until that point, I'd always had an outside hobby, a passion, a social life, etc. And then it was during kind of lockdown, etc. I very much threw myself into this new role at Dell, because I don't only joined in September 2019, right? And the plan, and at the time the expectation was to travel, etc. And then obviously 2020 kicked in, and that's when I started off, my podcast initially, and I threw myself into so much about work that for a few years there, work very much became everything to me. And I think that is why there was a period in 2021 where I very seriously burnt out, and I have teetered on the edge of that over the last few years. And the last few years I've really been struggling with, or not struggling, striving again to get that balance, and have these hobbies outside, like with my my horse, and my dog and just being outside, right, and trying to step away from my desk anytime I can. But you're so right. I think when you don't have those outside hobbies giving you that balance, you can very quickly burn out in this industry. And I do think that is a lot to do with, as well as, I'm not saying that this purely relates to women, because I know many of my male colleagues, right, suffer from this as well, and I've had conversations with them about that. But I do think there is just something extra that we have about that, around that need to prove yourself, right? I don't think that, I think it can be quite heavy early on in your career, especially when you're looking around, right? You don't see a lot of other women in these technical roles. And even when you get to positions like yourself, right? Like me, it's still present. And sometimes if you kind of let that take over, it can lead to, like you say, taking on too much, right? And just
Yeah,
getting,
absolutely. And I think, like, a lot of it as well, you have to manage your time.
yeah,
You have to think about what's a priority. You can't do everything. And a
yeah,
struggle for me was when I moved into a new role and I was promoted, I would go through that cycle again. I would
yeah,
feel like, oh my God, I've got imposter syndrome.
yes,
I need to now start proving myself. I'm with a bunch of experts who have been at Dell and previous EMC, and they know these products, been working on them for 20 plus years. And I guess it's having more confidence in yourself. I mean, I was really, really lucky when I moved into, it used to be the GTO, and then after the reorg, it's now the tech office. I moved into a team that were all male. They had a long history at Dell EMC, and they really, really welcomed me into the team. I was quite nervous going in because I was the first female. I was the youngest to go
yeah,
into that team in EMEA.
yeah,
But they were really, really great. All of them really welcomed me in. And my manager just says that I'm one of the lads. He says, so, yeah, it was a completely different world when I moved from smaller organizations that I worked for
yeah,
into Dell Technologies and into a
yeah,
big global tech company. And I
yeah,
find that, there's different programs and there's the resources there for women, and not just women, outside of the box as well, but we have so much support. Um, and yeah, I think that it's
I,
fantastic for young females that are coming into the industry as well, because there's mentorship programs, the graduate schemes that we run. There's
yeah.
so much opportunity there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I agree with you. There is something about working for like a global company, like Dell Technologies. And I think it's just because you are exposed, right, to so many different cultures and people, etc., that just inherently helps you break down biases and open your mind and open your experience to new things. And so I think it creates a culture of just being a bit more open, right? Open
Hmm.
to seeing new faces and hearing new voices in various different roles. And I think because you're in that environment, it kind of fosters this more, yeah, more supportive environment. I'm very lucky as well. I've had a lot of great I think they call them allies, right? I've had a lot of great male allies throughout my career who have really, really supported me, and I've been very, very lucky for that. So let's talk a little bit then about, you've been in Dell for how many years now?
So I've been in Dell for 5 years.
5
My
years.
anniversary was last week. Yeah, so five
Oh,
years. Um, so
I think I remember.
previous to Dell, I worked. My first job when I started my apprenticeship was for a HP partner. So I worked in the channel,
Yep.
and I worked for the HP partner for 11 years. So I
Okay.
started out basics, printer, tape libraries, computer
Yeah.
engineer, worked up to server, hardware, then virtualization started to come out.
Yep.
So I started working on VMware deployments, VDI. Got to 11 years, was a little bit like, I'm getting itchy feet. An
Yep.
opportunity came up. I wanted to think about growing my career outside of the Isle of Man, because
Yep.
obviously it's a very small pool.
Yep.
So I looked at different businesses that had a presence in the UK, but still had a headquarters in the Isle of Man, so I could start to expose myself into the UK.
Yep.
So then I moved over to a Dell Platinum Partner, Synapse, who I still love very dearly.
Yeah.
And I worked there for 6, maybe 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to do a lot more work in the UK with Synapse. So I
Yep.
was doing a lot of the installations around storage. I started to then focus around DPS because I got to a point when I hit 38
Mm-hmm.
now. When I hit 30, I thought I want to be a specialist in a certain area because I always did a little bit of everything.
Yep.
I always knew enough, of networking. I knew enough of storage, I knew enough of compute to be able to build a whole environment. But then I
Mm-hmm.
thought I want people that are going to ask for Aimie for that particular proposal, opportunity, deployment, whatever it is. And
Yep.
that's when I chose data protection. And the reason being, back then, nobody wanted to spend any money on backups.
Yeah.
Backups
Yeah.
were forgotten about. It was the last thought. And when
Yep.
you worked for a managed service provider, when a ticket
Yep.
got raised for backups and you had to fix a backup environment, everyone's like, oh, like no one
Yeah.
wanted to do it. And I thought, there's a gap here. And I thought,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
I'm going to really focus on this. And I became the SME for data protection. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when Dell started to notice me.
Yep.
I installed the first IDPA in EMEA when it was released at Dell, which was the integrated appliance. That was 8 years ago, and just got a really good reputation from my installs. Always dreamed really of working for a global tech company. And when the opportunity came, I jumped for it. So
Yep.
yeah, I've been at Dell now for 5 years, and it's been great for my career. As soon as I started Dell, I went straight into the pre-sales team in the UK, under the DPS division, and then I just worked myself up. I worked in different sectors to begin with, which I think was good exposure for me,
Yeah.
at that enterprise level as well, because I'd always worked more on small to medium businesses.
Yep.
And now, yeah, I'm in the tech office, so I get to do a lot of travel, supporting EMEA. And I think that's one of the things I love about my job is the
Yep.
flexibility.
Yep.
Last year I traveled to, I would say, like 15 plus countries, in my role: Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, the US, Paris, Egypt, Czech Republic, Dublin, Scotland, Germany.
Yep.
So it's a great opportunity for young people to come in, and have that flexibility, freedom, if you like. I love the fact that I can work from home and it's a hybrid role for me.
Yep.
I never thought that I would love working from home because
Yep.
my past is on site with customers.
Yeah.
I love people. I love, socializing, and I really, really struggled to begin with during the pandemic with that working from home. I changed jobs, I moved to Dell. I'd never met any of my team for like a year and a half. But now I think it is the perfect role, to be honest, to have that hybrid where you are in person for some days and then some days you're at home and you can get the work that needs to be done when you have to focus and catch up on everything.
Yeah, I definitely do think that it is the best of both worlds. Like being able to have those days, especially when you're so busy like yourself and you're traveling. My travel tends to go in peaks and troughs. And I always find that if I go through a period of time where I've got like quite a lot of travel back to back, I can't wait to get a good week at home so I can catch up on everything, right?
Yeah,
And
same.
yeah, and I do feel like in our roles where we are, responsible for EMEA, and so people can reach out to us from all different countries, all different industries, all different sizes of customers. You can serve, right? You can help so many people with a
Mm-hmm.
solid week at home, right? And yeah, I think whilst everyone got a little bit tired, right, of videos and webinars and recording, and we definitely all missed that. human interaction. I think that now, people are used to it, and you can deliver really great sessions virtually. And I've done in-person, like you say, EBCs at our executive briefing centre in London, and I love those. But I've also done, hybrid sessions, and I just try and make sure I bring the energy right when I'm on camera, and those can go down really well as well. So yeah, I think the kind of hybrid working is really nice, and you get to enjoy where you live, right? But in terms of things that you love, then, so the opportunities and that is something that comes up time and time again, and it's so true. There's just opportunity to grow and go in different directions and find a role that fits you. I definitely think the travel, anything else that you kind of just love about this industry.
Yeah, I love. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, at heart, I am a bit of a nerd, really. So once you get me up talking about what I specialize in, it's difficult to stop me talking because I love my job so much. And I think it's because of my career path, and I love to interact with all of our different partners. I love building those relationships. For me, innovation is what I thrive off. So I always come up with different ideas, and I try to influence product management. They probably think I'm crazy sometimes, but I like looking into the future. It's probably the creative side of me as well. Looking at new technology. So that's something that I think I might go into. When I start thinking about where my career will go over the next sort of 3 to 5 years. I will quite like to be involved in strategy, vision. I really, really enjoy doing that. I've always kept myself certified and up to date. And I think that's just because of the apprenticeship I had. We always had to do 2 exams every year. And I just kept it up. I've just always done that. I've always done 2 exams every year. And last year I did 2 big certifications. So I did my CISSP, because I wanted to learn a bit more about things from a management perspective rather than a technical perspective, because all the certifications that I've done in the past were very product focused with my background. And I needed to start thinking like how a manager would think, and from the business value side of things rather than the technical value. So I do a lot of like personal development, and I will just go and choose the qualifications that I think interest me and they're going to help me progress in my career. So I also did my CCSP, which is the cloud version of CISP. So CISP is like a gold standard in the industry as well. And once you've got that against your name. And I did a IOD, company director course. So again, I did this off my own back. This is a global certification, and it was a 1-week course which gives you an idea of how an organization runs as a whole. So from the finance, from the role of the director to strategy and leadership, which is something that I really want to start focusing on. I think we talked before about having a very busy work schedule. And when you want to start to progress and move up, you have to learn to delegate. And it can be so difficult because everybody knows if you're a specialist at a certain area and you've done it for years, sometimes it's just quicker to do it yourself and move on because you're busy. But in order to be able to move up in your career, you have to start to delegate and to grow, really. And I guess that's where I'm at now. Is I'm thinking about the long term. I really, like I said, enjoy the strategic side of things, and that's in-house at Dell, and that's also with our customers and our partners, helping them with their tech strategy, whether that's around cyber, data protection, or just security as a whole.
Yeah. So yeah, it's basically the endless opportunities, the nerd in you, and get, get into. We're all see. This is what I spoke about in was it in my last episode or with someone else recently, and I was talking about how people outside of tech very much have a view of techies, right? And when you come into tech, like we've said, when you look around, everyone is so different. Everyone comes from such different backgrounds. We look different, we talk different, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But we all do secretly have some kind of nerd in us. There is something in there that we're all just like very into whatever it is that we're into, right? Whether it's learning about new things or, like you say, interested in innovation and coming up with crazy ideas. There's like that kind of commonality that kind of runs through all of us. So I think anyone out there who has that, it doesn't matter if you look like the typical techie, etc. Tech is full of those types of people, but in all different shapes and forms, basically. So any other advice then? I think, like you said, there is learning is definitely something to take into account.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Just listening to you speak there, I was thinking to myself, I really need to make more time for learning, because I actually do enjoy it as well. And I do think that over the last year or so, that's something that's been niggling in my head. I feel like I don't know what it is, but there's an itch that needs scratched. And I do feel like it is potentially learning something new or doing something along those lines. So that's definitely something I am going to take from this conversation. But any other pieces of advice?
Yeah, I would say that obviously learning is going to really help you grow in your career, but you need to be interested in the subject. You
Yeah.
have to want to learn it.
Yep.
And again, like, find time. I
Yeah.
always find that when I get a quiet period, so usually at Dell, it's the school holidays can be quite
Yeah.
quiet. So I will get all of my study material prepped. I make it as easy as possible, so there's no excuse. Sometimes I have to turn off everything, so I'll just
Yeah.
focus and study. The other the other key thing that's really helped me get to where I am today is mentorship.
Okay.
Now, when I started at Dell, I was asked to join a mentorship program. And I was thinking, oh, what's this? There were so many programs when I
Yeah.
joined. I've come
Yeah.
from a smaller organization where you don't have any of this. And looking back now, I had mentors, but I just never called them mentors. They were
Yeah.
very good friends of mine, and they helped me and guided me along my career. And yeah, so at Dell, we went into a mentorship program. I'd say that was key to getting me really where I am today, because it is such a big organization. It helped me to navigate around different teams, to understand the organization structure. I knew where I wanted to be. So when I started at Dell 5 years ago, probably about 2 years into the job, I was like, okay, my next goal is GTO. Like, that's where I want to go. So I went out, I had a look at the team members within that team and connected. I knew a couple of them anyway, and I chose a mentor that was going to help me grow into that role
Yeah.
and support me, guide me. So I'd say absolutely key is to have those people in your network and think about where you want to be. And I remember one thing that I said actually when I went into GTO was, yeah, that was always my end goal. And someone said, no, like, that should never be your end goal.
Yeah.
It's just your next goal.
Yeah.
And you should always look at things long term like that. And also having mentees is really, really important. Because obviously, like, you can share your experience and you can help them, but they actually can help you as well. I've
Yeah.
had quite a few mentees, and I had one girl actually. She was in Manchester University, and she wanted to be a data analyst, and she ended up actually going into an infrastructure role because of the mentorship that we'd had. But I was so made up for her, and she's absolutely thriving in her job
Yeah.
now. So I'd say yes, obviously constant development within your own personal growth, whether that's learning, whether it's programs that you can be a part of.
Yeah.
Mentorship is, a great opportunity to be able to grow your network and build those connections. Think about where you want to be, the people that are going to be the right mentor for you. And yeah, just there's so many opportunities out there that the world is your oyster, really.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
said, I've got a very different background where I was engineering.
Yeah.
It could be so different for me now if I went
Yeah.
into the tech industry. I may have gone into cloud architecture or
Mm-hmm.
AI.
Mm-hmm.
So there's endless possibilities, I think,
Yeah.
for younger people now, and
Yeah.
it's bigger than ever, the industry.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely. Again, things that kind of, for me, I really need to take on board there is, what I would say is, one thing that's really great about Dell is people encourage you to reach out, right, to whether it's leadership or people in other teams. And that is always something I felt like quite, I don't know, a bit uncomfortable about.
mhm.
But when I've been encouraged to do it and I have reached out, it's always gone really well. It's always been
Yeah.
so nice. I've like made connections and had really great conversations, and they have definitely helped me just even in my week to week, month to month, understanding of what sometimes can be quite overwhelming working in such a huge company. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, reach out, build your network, look for mentors, take on mentees. Definitely something I need to prioritize doing a bit more of, and maybe like a bit more formally over the next 6 months, because I think sometimes I struggle to kind of look up and around and think where I want to go next. I've kind of
But
always
it's
just followed where I wanted, kind of thing, which has been nice. But I think when you get to this point, you do need to kind of like look up and around and connect with other people to kind of figure out where you might go next.
yeah, and you've got a really good point there, because number one is, don't be scared to reach
Yeah.
out to leadership. Because I was exactly the same with you. I thought, oh, God, he's not going to want to mentor me. He's flying around the world, busy. He's at that VP level, and
Yeah.
do you know what? I've always had like such positive responses. So never be afraid to reach out
Yeah.
to people that are higher up than you in the organization.
Yep.
And also, we talk about like thinking about the next step and where we want to be. And sometimes for me, like, that has never been very clear. I can't say I want to be here in 5 years. And to be honest, the character of me, I'm not a 5-year
Yeah.
plan person.
Yeah.
I go with my intuition, and I find that the way that I'm working, who I'm working with, when I grow within my career, opportunities come forward. And I
Yep.
find that I sort of navigate through my career, and I've always been very, very lucky and supported and
Yep.
naturally grown. But yes,
Mhm.
I'm thinking about, okay, I need to learn a bit more about how this works to understand certain aspects. But yeah, I think it's never been like set in stone as to, I want to be here at this point, in my career.
Yep.
I've just, navigated through quite naturally, really, to
Yeah.
get to where I want to be. But obviously, worked hard, and being recognized and noticed for it as well. In
Yeah.
every business that I worked for, every company has supported me. I've never had any issues with that. And Dell has just been fantastic as well. Like, my manager today, I have a fantastic relationship with him. And, in fact, I wouldn't call him a manager, I'd call him a leader, because
Yeah.
he is a leader and he wants to see his team grow.
Yeah.
And he fully supports us. So yeah, I couldn't be luckier in that way.
Yeah, that's what you need in someone. I really thrive. I find I thrive under someone that I classify as a leader. Definitely. So yeah, Yeah, I would 100% agree with everything you said. I think I'm very much the same. I've always, worked hard, really gone where, like, followed what I enjoy, right? Where do you have fun? What are you really interested in? Like, what some really, like you said, you can't really, it's hard to learn about something if you're not interested in it, right? So I just followed what I enjoy, what I'm interested in, made good connections, tried to do a good job, tried to leave people feeling, happy, helped after
Yeah.
interactions. I think that's great advice. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it, and it was amazing to hear another awesome story. So thanks so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So thanks everyone for tuning in. Please, I always forget to say this, but like, subscribe, share, it really helps. And we'll see you back in the next episode.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.